Welp, TPOT 23 was a bust. It wasn't a terrible episode, but it was really messy and a poor start to the Defeat 1 trilogy. This made me worried that TPOT 24 was gonna be just as disappointing, if not more. Well, it's finally out. Let's see how it is. Genuinely, what happened here? I assumed all 3 episodes would be of similar quality, but instead we went from a seasoned weak point to a highlight. It's not a perfect episode. Some of the subplots like markers were dull and felt like they forgot characters such as Pen or Golf Ball for most of it, but when the episode was good, it was really good. But for me, the highlight of the episode was Pencil's arc finally coming to a close, at least for now. To celebrate that, let's take a quick look through Pencil's journey in TPOT. But before getting to that, it's important to note the sharp difference in how she's characterized between bfdia and how she's characterized in BFB/TPOT. bfdia Pencil, while still self-centered and rude to others, was caring towards the rest of FreeSmart and her allies. In BFB though, she becomes more bratty, aggressive, and controlling. Her and Match are quick to use lighting to attack others, verbally abuse their teammates, and are dismissive of others. This new attitude causes Book and Icy to leave the alliance, which surprises Pencil. Keep note of that, it'll come back later. Pencil was never the most popular character when it came to vote to eliminate, at least in bfdia, but this shift in attitude caused her to get out first in BFB, with a record amount of votes. She would continue to act like this in the few times we see her for the rest of BFB, but in TPOT, the Exiters got their own subplot, with Pencil being one of the most focused on. When Roboti gets captured by 4 in TPOT 6, she's quick to abandon him, saying he was just dead weight. I'm sure that won't come back later though.
Foreshadowing is a narrative device.
Next we see Pencils in TPOT 9, where we see her take a leadership role among the Exiters, splitting them up into groups. The groups themselves are interesting as well. She puts Match with Lai and Stapy, saying she doesn't trust those two on their own. She also puts herself with David and Bracelety, the only remaining one she's semi-friendly with. This continues into TPOT 11, where she's actually acting supportive towards the two, as she continues to take a leadership role among the Exiters. Pencil even comes up with the plan that would lead to their eventual freedom. That, mixed with her then prominent role in bfdia, leads her to receiving 20,336 votes to join the game, barely beating Bracelety, and after meddling from one, enough for her and Lai to make it in. Pencil was then thrusted onto Cloudier. Whether that's a good or a bad thing is up for debate, but I'd say it was a good idea at first. By this point, Pencil has no positive relationships with anyone in TPOT, and once more Book and Icy reject her, so for the first time in the game, she has no allies. Take that, and put her on a team with GB and Dona, both of who she's had beef with in the past, and you've got a great setup for potential growth for all 3. Here we see her rudeness and aggression on full display, as she immediately resorts to violence when the challenge begins, and despite just meeting 2, she's already dismissive of him. And after being rejected by Book and Icy, she sabotages them in the challenge, causing them to be up for elimination, nearly getting Ice Cube out. Despite that, in TPOT 14 she continues to pester the two into becoming an alliance again. The way she specifies alliances is interesting to me. She doesn't want them to be friends again, she only wants them to help her in the game. This shows that despite half a decade passing, she never learned from her previous mistakes with how she treated Bubble. Already a lot to go off of, but Pencil wouldn't get a big starring role until TPOT 15. Throughout the episode, Pencil completely ignores the universe crumbling around her as her focus remains locked on winning, which doesn't seem overly out of character, but we do find out there's a deeper reason why. She was trapped inside the exit for 6 years, longer than anyone else. In that time, all her allies either left or hate her now. Her world completely changed, and she dreads the thought of even being eliminated again. She comes to the decision that perhaps her only option would be to go back in time herself, causing a chain of events that, if not for one's intervention, would have destroyed everything. Vanny brings this up in TPOT 16, helping show the consequences of Pencil's actions, and proving how her selfishness affects everyone around her. This episode also does a great job of exploring her character. Throughout her run in TPOT, she's far angrier than we've ever seen her. At first, it felt somewhat out of character, but the reason they give for the shift makes a lot of sense.
Being angry is okay, Pen. You have to let it out or it'll just fester inside of you, and you'll hurt people when you don't mean to.
This episode also establishes her and Pen somewhat as counterparts. Pencil is determined to win to keep herself from losing, while Pen is desperate not to lose anyone else. They're both people who have lost all those close to them in the game, but while Pen is able to reach out to others and bond, Pencil shuts herself in, isolating between challenges. Pen is also far more empathetic, even trying to help protect Pencil from 4 after all of her trauma in the exit. Pencil's selfishness seems to only increase though, leading her to sacrifice her teammates whenever she thinks it would help her escape, viewing them as dead weight. Whoa, look at that. Ironically, it would be this behavior that would cause her team to not only lose, but face a double elimination. Sadly, this would be the only time she loses, an issue I'll get to later. Despite being responsible for her team's loss, she manages to get a record amount of votes, more than triple the amount of votes she got to join the season. Most importantly, during the challenge, Book finally confronts Pencil for her behavior.
You nearly destroyed the universe, Pencil, for your own selfishness! You didn't come back asking to be friends, you wanted an alliance to get you further in the game! That's all you want, it's all you've ever wanted, and I won't be used like that! So no, I will not work with you, I will not join your alliance, and I will not be your friend! Then what good are you?
This is only added to by the speech Pen gives Pencil about moving on and making new friends. It's personally my favorite moment in the whole episode as it helps wrap up Pen's arc perfectly, but also shows Pencil's failure since returning. TPOT 19 rolls around next, and this may be an even bigger episode. Shortly after the challenge starts, Pencil immediately targets Fanny and kills her, and even goes after TV despite him not even being in the challenge. She just did it for his power. The entire challenge, she's merciless, killing anyone she can and taking revenge on anyone who's angered her. With one exception. Throughout the episode, Grassy latches onto Pencil after Snowball gets out, and despite this clearly annoying her, she shows him mercy. She hides Grassy in a vent to protect him from the others, but most importantly, herself. That doesn't halt her rampage though. She attacks Four and steals his powers as revenge for trapping her. We find out this was all part of One's plan, and that One specifically made Pencil rejoin, which has been hinted at for the past few episodes. One relates to Pencil, so much so that in exchange for 4 and 2's powers, One sends her back in time with a device that lets her reset to bfdi 1A so that she can fix her relationships. Pencil doesn't try to make new friends, or put in effort to fix her old ones. Instead, she thinks the only way to fix things is to start over. One and Pencil mirroring each other is such a great way of expanding their characters. I know it's a basic writing technique, but it's very well done. I'd love to do a deep dive into how One's story mirrors Pencil, but that would be better saved for another day. Comment if you would like to see that. Despite the fact she doesn't appear in TPOT 21, I'd like to know something I believe represents my biggest issue with Pencil and TPOT. They give her immunity, while putting lesser popular characters up for elimination. TPOT is way too protective of Pencil. Compare it to fellow debuter Lai, both competed for 7 challenges, and while Pencil was immune for a whopping 6, Lai was only safe 3 times. I think this issue was also due to being teamed with Donut and Golf Ball, who it feels the writers are setting out to be potential winners. But they were afraid of losing these 3, and so they rarely put them up for voting. Not only does it make their final placement in the game feel less earned, but it also causes characters who could use the help to get out earlier. This bias only became more annoying in TPOT 23, which had one of the most hated outcomes in the whole series, but after TPOT 24, I understand now. Throughout the episode, we see Pencil reset her time loop thousands of times, each time making the same mistakes, not too different from what One had done when she tried fixing her past. This is shown perfectly to the montage mid-episode, set to the song Isn't That What Foes Are For. It perfectly encapsulates Pencil's arc and her mistakes throughout the season. The episode prior gave us such a mid-song to a fillery montage. No hate to Black Hole, all hate to Marker. But I guess that was all warm-up for what was to come. Throughout BFB and Teapot, we see Match learn from her past mistakes, just like Pen. So when we finally see her make amends with Bubble and Ruby, it feels like trust was earned rather than forced. And when Match finds out Pencil needs help, she immediately rushes to save her, despite Pencil pushing everyone else away and mistreating them. This is shown even more during that montage. Eventually, Pencil stops. She finally reflects on her decisions, and when found by the announcer and Balloony, she stops trying to reset the timeline and joins them. At long last, she finally realizes the problem wasn't others. The problem was herself. This brings us to the climax of her arc. After all the rejection and all the mistakes, she finally reunites with Match and apologizes for everything, as her former allies listen from afar. And in a twist I, and most others, never saw coming. She quits. After doing so much damage and hurting others to make sure she stays in the game, she realizes her mistakes and eliminates herself. This is the first time a character in BFDI has ever quit the game, and I couldn't think of a better way to end it. She makes a selfless decision for once in Teapot. I think it's also worth noting Ice Cube's reaction to this. She and the others stay silent, but she gives an approving look. Ice Cube has been the biggest victim of Pencil's bullying in the show, so for Icy to believe Pencil's words and to smile at them, I think that's a fantastic detail. It's this moment that made me accept Pencil's immunity run. They were able to tell a full story with no interference, and with a conclusion that they would normally never be able to give. It makes me excited to see how the BFTI writers will do with a non-elimination season like IDFB. I guess only time will tell. But what I do know is this: despite its many hiccups, I do think Teapot is a great season of the show, and Pencil's arc stands out to me as one of the great reasons why. Watch me say all of this just for Teapot 25 to be buns and Tennis Ball to win this season. I've been Trashman, and thanks for watching.